Module 3, Lesson 9, we're continuing with our comparison of integers and rational numbers. Your objectives for today are that you are able to compare integers and or rational numbers looking at fractions, decimals, and whole numbers. Again, an integer, positive or negative, whole numbers, and rational numbers are positive and negative, whole numbers, fractions, and decimals. Your second objective is that you're able to relate positive and negative numbers to real-world situations that you could see. And your last objective is that you are able to place these on a number line and use that number line to compare greatest and least numbers given their order. So let's take a look at this first example. You have a -10 and a +5. So comparing these, I could say -10 is less than 5 because it is to the left. I should say the number, because -10 is to the left of 5 on the number line. You also could say that 5 is greater than -10 because 5 is to the right of -10 on the number line. If you wanted to give a real-world situation that dealt with -10 and 5, you could say, my dad gave me $5 for the concession stand. And then in order to have the -10 on there, so I got $5 and then I spent, or you could say then I borrowed $10 from my friend. So borrowing makes that a -10. This being given to me makes it a +5. All right, let's go ahead and look at this vertical number line down here. It says create a real-world situation that relates to the point shown in the number line. Be sure to describe the relationship between the values of the 2 points and how it relates to the order on the number line. So I have to tell a story. So I would say I stood on the beach, and after jumping in, I was 1 meter below the water. So my 0 is on the beach, 1 meter below is -1. And then comparing my orders on a number line, they're already there. And then I would say -1 is less than 0 because -1 is farther down. Than 0 on the number line. Or you could say 0 is greater than -1 because 0 is above -1 on the number line. All right, let's take a look here on this page. We have a couple examples that I will do with you, and then then I will ask you to do it on your own. So our first one here, they're going to give you a story problem, and then they have you see how the individual who wrote the story problem explains it, and then you have to say whether the way they explained it is correct or not. So Felicia needs to write a story problem that relates to the order in which the numbers -6.5 and -10 are represented on a number line. She writes the following. During a recent football game, our team lost yards on 2 consecutive downs. We lost 6.5 yards on the first down. During the second down, our quarterback was sacked for an additional 10-yard loss. On the number line, I represented the situation by first locating -6.5. I located the point by moving 6.5 units to the left of 0. Then I graphed the second point by moving 10 units to the left of 0. You have to say whether you agree with this situation or not. So the first thing you need to do before you can say you agree with any of these stories is that you need to graph what's happening. So we have a line of scrimmage, which is our 0. This is where they start. They lost 6.5 yards. So we're going to lose 6.5 yards. I'm going to say it's about here. Losing is negative, so that's my 6.5 yards. Then they had an additional 10-yard loss. That does not mean we're back at 0 and lose 10. We're right here and we lose 10 more. And if I lose 10 more, this puts me at -16.5 yards. Now, she said she first located -6.5, which is correct. And then she went back to 0 and went to 10. And 10 would probably be about right here. You would have to say that you disagree. So I disagree because if there was 2 consecutive losses, we do not go back to 0 to plot the second loss. We have to add the second loss onto the first. All right, let's look at our second example. Really, it's our third. Manuel looks at a number line diagram that has the points -3/4 and -1/2 graph. So let's look here. We have a 0. Common denominator between 4 and 2 would be 4. So I need to change my 1/2 to something over 4. Multiply by 2, multiply by 2. This gives me a -2/4 and -3/4. I look at my denominator, it means I'm counting by fourths. And then I have my -1. And it says -3/4 and -2/4. So here are my 2 points. I borrowed 50 cents from my friend Lester. I borrowed 75 cents from my friend Calvin. I owe Lester less than I owe Calvin. Now 50 cents is equal to 50 hundredths, and 75 cents is equal to 75 hundredths. Now, he borrowed or he owes them that much. These are going to be negatives. Now, these are fractions. I need to take my fractions and turn them into decimals to make sure what he is saying is true. So, 2 divided by 4. I have to add my 0, bring up my decimal. 20 divided by 4 is 5. So 0.5 or 5/10 is the same as 50 hundredths. And then I have a 3/4 right here. So I take my 3 divided by 4. 30 divided by 4 is 7. I subtract that, I get a 2. Bring down the other 0. 20 divided by 4 is 5. That gives me a negative 75 cents. So again, he says Lester, he borrowed 50 cents from, so this is Lester's. And then Calvin, he borrowed the 75 cents from, and he says he owes Lester less. So is this less than that? And the answer is yes. This is less than that because it's further to the right. Now, it is a little bit confusing in the way it's being worded because he says that he owes Lester less. On the number line, this is actually a greater number because it's closer to 0. But when we're working in the negatives, the closer to 0 you are, the less money it is. And so if we're all the way up here, we only owe him 25 cents, which is a lot less than owing 75 cents. And so in the situation with this is correct because owing 50 cents is owing less money than owing 75 cents. Now, you will be responsible for doing number 4 and number 7 on your own. So number 7 is across here. So once you complete 4 and 7, have me check it and I will move you on.